Hello everyone. Today is April 6, 2009. My name is Nick and I'll be reviewing the Cube Computer MidTower Deluxe. The Cube Computer MidTower Deluxe has went through several upgrades since my last spec review. First I'll start with the operating system. We're running Windows Vista Home Premium Service Pack 1 and it's 64-bit Windows Vista. The system scores a 4.0 hardware rating. And our processor is an AMD Athlon 64X2 dual-core processor 4200 plus. And the RAM is 4 gigabytes. The numbers for out the Windows Experience Index rating. Starting with the processor, we have a 4.9, and for our RAM, we have a 5.9. For the graphics, we have a 4.0. Gaming graphics, we have a 4.1. And primary hard disk, we have a 5.9. As you can see, the base score is determined by the graphics card. Same Zoside X82 case. Have a DVD-ROM drive and a DVD burner that can support dual layer, card reader and floppy drive, and USB 2.0 ports at the bottom. The system motherboard is an ECS M-Force 9M-A socket AM2 Plus with AM3 support, with the latest BIOS upgrade. Our memory is 4 gigabytes of GIL RAM, DDR2 800. Our graphics card is an ATI Radeon HD 3450 with 256 megabytes of built-in RAM. For the audio, we're using the onboard Realtek HD audio, and we're using the Realtek Gigabit LAN, which is actually run at 10100 because that's all our router supports. But it does have native support for Gigabit LAN. And the power supply, which I've upgraded since the last video, the old one never died or anything. I just found this one is a AtPower Dynapower USA ADW-500 500 watt power supply with dual 80mm fans, blue LED fan in the bottom. And you can't tell in the video, but it has a shiny red coat. The power supply, the metal has a shiny red coat. And as you can see, we have a UV reactive main sleeve on the 20 to 24 pin connector. This power supply was only $25. Now most of you would think that you're paying $25 for a power supply, you're getting crap. Well, actually, this power supply has a lot of features that most $20 to $25 power supplies do not have. Here's one thing that cheap power supplies, well, $25 power supplies don't usually have. Power output filtration. Provide stable and clean current to prolong this lifetime of your system. This power supply has filtering, of course. Typically the same of what you would see in a typical Sparkle Power or Fortron Source Partner power supply. Pretty much identical to it. The power supply also has much bigger transformers in it that convert the power down to a smaller level. Typically in a cheap power supply you will find really small switching transformers like these here. This power supply that's in the MidTower Deluxe has a transformer about the size of that rear one in this old Bestech power supply. Much bigger transformer. And also this power supply has a much bigger heatsink on the MOSFETs to keep it cool. This power supply also has regulated fans to control the fan speed if it gets hotter in the system. Like when you cold start the system, your fans are running very slow, and as the system warms up, your fans will speed up. And it's also determined by the load of the power supply, which overall it performs very well. And here's the thing about cheap power supplies, seeing that they don't have much of anything on, like you see this one here, is missing all the filtering components. Has low grade capacitors, low grade transformers, smaller heat sinks to keep the for the MOSFETs, and those will probably run much hotter, and the MOSFETs probably aren't rated very well. Very low amount of capacitors on the output. So all in all, you get a really lightweight power supply out of a typical cheap power supply. You see, I've worked with a lot of computer systems and various kinds of power supplies. This particular unit here weighs a bit more than several Antec and several FSP units I've handled. So all of you guys out there who are really into these expensive power supplies, This one here weighs more than some of them I've handled. For our CPU cooling, we have a Sunbeam Silent Whisper CPU cooler. It's a heat pipe cooler. We have a 120mm fan in the back, the power supply fans, and a side fan and 2 fans near the hard drives to keep the hard disk drives cool. The MidTower Deluxe now features 2 Seagate Barracuda 7200.12 hard drives, both 500GB apiece, running in a RAID 1 mirror array. So if one fails, it has a backup, so you can easily replace a failed drive. I'm about to show you the performance of the Seagate Barracuda 7200.12s. I'm using QuickBench. There are your numbers: the read and the write. Which these numbers, especially on the read, is more than double than fast than the previous Western Digital Caviar C 160GB hard drive that was in the MidTower Deluxe. And you see very nice numbers here for our hard drives. And one thing you have to consider to have that's really good in performance in your computer is your hard drives. They're typically the biggest bottlenecks in your system. If you have a slow hard drive in your system, it can make your whole computer slow. If you have a fast hard drive in your system, your computer will usually be a very fast performing computer. It's just like in my old Cube Computer Plexi videos, when I had my Western Digital drive and my SATA drive in there, people were wondering why the thing was so fast. Because most Pentium 3 computers back in the day had hard drives that were very slow. So people would pretty much think that the whole system contributed to it, saying the Pentium 3 processor was very slow and everything. Well, even back then, stuff like hard drives can make a difference. Another hardware component we have in this system is a Hauppauge WinTV HDR 1250MC high definition TV tuner. We work with Windows Media Center. This card is a PCI Express card. It supports analog NTSC and digital ATSC and clear QAM. You can see the thing about this card, the ATSC is digital, so you could pretty much hook you up an antenna and receive digital broadcasting over the air rather than the old analog stuff. In other words, you want to use a converter box with this computer. And planned upgrades for this system in the summer, if my budget, if I got enough money, plan on upgrading to a Phenom 2 processor in this computer, since the board does support them with the BIOS update, which I've already updated the BIOS. It's a really neat feature from AMD. You can step up your processor platform without having to replace your motherboard. I'll eventually get 2 more Seagate Barracuda 7200.12 500GB hard drives and set up a 4-drive RAID 0+1 array, which is mirror and striping at the same time. And once I get that, you could probably expect numbers of probably about 240 on the read and about maybe something like, I'd say maybe 140 on the write. It's according to how the RAID controller works the drives. This concludes our review of the MidTower Deluxe. Check back soon for a new review of the MidTower Deluxe Black Max Edition. It has also had some serious upgrading since its first review.